One more big characteristic of oligopolies is their use of advertising. We've mentioned advertising off and on through the last few chapters. We see advertising most often in oligopolies and in monopolistic competition. In a few models, we've talked about how prices change infrequently in oligopolies. So a lot of times, instead of changing the price, oligopolies will invest in advertising instead or product development. This may be a better option for them instead of changing the price and having to worry about their rivals' reactions to the price change. We also see advertising frequently in oligopolies because they're able to make a profit in the long run. They have more money available to invest in advertising. There's definitely a debate about whether advertising is a positive or a negative for the economy. Are we making the industries more efficient or less efficient by advertising? So we're going to look at some of the positives and some of the negatives of advertising. The main positive of advertising is getting information to the consumers. So the more information that consumers have, the more efficient the market will be. And that's because consumers can find what they most want at the best price. Advertising can also enhance competition by making it easier for new firms to enter the market. So a new firm can enter, they need to get the word out to everyone that they're now in the market and selling a certain product. Advertising can speed up technological progress. This happens by facilitating the introduction of new goods. The biggest negative effect of advertising is that instead of getting accurate information out to the consumers, advertising is being used to alter the consumer's preferences. So the companies using advertising are trying to shift the demand curve of their specific consumers. So claims made in advertising may not be accurate or true. They may be more manipulative or misleading. Another form of advertising is brand names. And brand names can be positive if they're getting out the information to the consumer. So the consumer can tell which product that they really like the best and want to purchase. A lot of times, though, brand names can be misleading. So the consumer may end up actually paying higher prices for a good with a certain brand name when the identical product may be available in a different, unadvertised, without a brand name product, so an off-brand. A good example of this is at Walmart and also at Aldi. A lot of times what those two companies will do is they'll work with the exact same manufacturers. They'll get the same product, but then it will be in Great Value brand instead. So when the buyer comes up, they're choosing between the brand name and the Great Value brand. They don't actually realize that the product is exactly the same inside the packaging. Advertising plays a huge role in oligopolies. Here you can see a list of oligopolies and the amount that they spend on advertising, and this is in millions of dollars. Now let's discuss efficiency. So we know oligopolies are somewhere between monopolies and monopolistic competition, and neither of those industries, and oligopoly as well, none of the three of these are efficient. The only industry that's efficient is perfect competition, where they end up right at that equilibrium point of supply and demand. Oligopolies are inefficient both productively and allocatively because the price is higher than minimum ATC and the price is higher than marginal cost. They're always going to raise the price above those where they're going to be receiving some profit per unit and total profit. I mentioned a minute ago, advertising also plays into this a bit. Advertising may be making the markets more efficient or less efficient depending on how well the accurate information is getting out to the consumer. And there's a few other things that can make oligopolies more or less efficient. First is foreign competition. They may have an oligopoly within the borders of the US, but if there's increasing competition from other countries, that's going to make the oligopoly's pricing and profits drop. The second one is limit pricing. We talked about limit pricing earlier, but what oligopolists will do is sometimes they will purposefully lower the price below that profit maximizing point to try to keep out new firms from entering the market. And if an oligopoly is using limit pricing, that is actually making the oligopoly more efficient because the prices are lower and they'll be producing more. The last thing that makes oligopolies potentially more efficient is technological advances. Remember that oligopolies can make profit in the long run, and sometimes that profit can be very large. A lot of times what will happen is the firm will take that large profit and reinvest it in their company, specifically in research and development. So they're coming out with new products all the time. So that would make oligopolies more efficient as well. To end this chapter, we're going to do this activity comparing the 4 types of industries. So for each characteristic, you want to make a check mark if it's true about that particular industry. Now, be aware there may be only one that fits it, or there may be more than one. There's at least one on here where all 4 are correct. All 4 industries have that characteristic. So pause the video here and try it out. Okay, first characteristic, there's one firm. So this is actually the definition of a monopoly when there's only one firm in the industry. Next one, few firms. That would be an oligopoly. And many firms. Both pure competition and monopolistic competition have many firms. Next is identical products. This is the main characteristic of pure competition, that they have identical products. It's also possible for an oligopoly to sell identical products. Next characteristic is differentiated products. This is monopolistic competition. So the main difference between pure competition and monopolistic competition is that in monopolistic competition, now they're selling differentiated products. It's also possible for an oligopoly to have differentiated products. And if you had some trouble here with monopoly, the monopoly won't have either one because there's only one firm for the whole industry. So they're actually selling a unique product. Next characteristic, can earn profit in the short run. In the short run, every type of firm may be able to earn profit. So it's possible they may be earning a profit, a loss, or potentially zero in the short run, but it's possible in all 4 industries. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is also true in every type of firm. So this is the profit maximizing rule in pure competition, monopoly, and monopolistic competition. In oligopoly, it gets a little bit more complicated because we looked at the 3 different models. So that's not necessarily true in all 3 models, but at least in the first one that we looked at, in the kinked demand curve, they're finding where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Next characteristic, can earn profit in the long run. This can only happen in firms with barriers to entry. So monopolists have barriers to entry and oligopolists have barriers to entry. So they are able to earn profit in the long run. The next one is a price taker. Price taker means that the firm has no control over the price. They have to take the price that's current in the market. And that is only true in pure competition. Monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly are all what we call price makers and have some control over the price. The next characteristic is entry in the long run. This is the opposite of having barriers to entry. So we talked about how monopoly and oligopoly have barriers to entry, and that's how they can earn profit in the long run. But in pure competition and monopolistic competition, it's easy for new firms to enter the market, so they're never able to have that profit in the long run. And the last one causes efficiency losses in the market. So I talked about this actually on the last slide. Pure competition is the only one that's efficient. The rest of them are inefficient. So monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly all will cause efficiency losses in the market. That means that all these three industries are inefficient. So this is a good recap of all of the most important characteristics of the 4 industries that we've studied.